Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to the Majeffries network on OpenTTD. Now today's episode is mostly going to involve building a new main line south out of GSMA, but first of all I want to talk to you about new GRFs. Now I said in the last episode that I needed some new track types. I found some. I've done the little hack thing where you go into the config file of OpenTTD and you change it so that you can add new GRFs to a saved game. I found out how to do that. I warn you guys, I'm not going to explain to you exactly how to do it because it's very easy to just Google it and find it on there, but it can break your game. That's the thing to remember, it can damage your save file, so only do it if you really want to change your new GRFs. As I say, it's not advisable. I took a bit of a risk. I created a backup save to make sure that if anything bad did happen I wouldn't lose any of the work that we've done so far. But here you can see me trying to find some new track types. So first thing, slight spoiler alert, I'll tell you what happens at the end of this little sequence. New tracks gone. Got rid of it completely. I just don't like it. I like the concept behind it. I like the fact that there are certain track types where speed limits are brought in, and there's, you know, you can have high speed track, you can have low speed track, things like that. And I've worked out through the parameters section of the GRF screen that you can change what those top speeds are. I think that's fine and that's great. The thing that I don't like about it, which killed it really for me, stone dead, was the fact that it's not compatible with every single train type. Now that for me would be the first thing. If I was to make a track type for OpenTTD, the first thing I would do, if it's overhead electrification, make it compatible with all the overhead electrification trains. If it's third rail, make it compatible with all the third rail trains. Don't shoehorn people into only using specific trains, because BR trains and UKRS, they're not niche new GRFs. A lot of people have downloaded them and used them, and yet new tracks doesn't seem to be compatible with it. And not only that, it also got rid of the ones that were compatible with it. So it like overrides them. So I remember Joker telling me in one of his comments that in one of his patches, which I believe is the one I'm using now, he's up to the maximum number of track types. So I didn't think it would be a problem keeping new tracks and getting these new tracks as well. Pardon the pun. Getting these different tracks as well. But actually it is a big problem because new tracks just overrides everything. So my simple solution was to completely get rid of new tracks. It's gone from the game for now. It's still downloaded and I can still add it back in the future if necessary, but at this moment in time, the latest version as well, because I made sure they're all the latest version of new tracks is gone. Again, if anyone has any advice on how to make it work with UK trains, please let me know, because I would quite like to keep it. I thought it was quite cool, but if it's not compatible with the trains I'm using, then I obviously can't keep it. It's just not going to work. So in its place we have the track types from the old maps, the UK fine scale gauge, I believe they're called. I think if you just search fine scale gauge you should be able to find them. So they bring in fine scale, overhead and third rail, and I believe there's another third rail type that I've got as well, which I was using in the last episode. What this does mean is I can go back to the way that I wanted to electrify the loop line around Guard City. So the northern part of the line, a bit like in London with the North London line, that is electrified at overhead catenary. And then the southern section, sort of from the western edge onwards, that's electrified using third rail. And then there's a little dual voltage section at a station, and there's a couple of aesthetic sidings, you know, like at Farringdon. If a train can't convert from overhead to third rail, there's a set of sidings that it can be put away in so that it doesn't get in the way of other trains coming through. That's basically what I've done with this loop line as well. On top of that, Guard City St George is currently electrified using dual voltage, so it's got third rail and overhead, because at this moment in time I kind of forget sometimes that we're still playing in the 1960s. There aren't trains that are compatible with both types of electrification yet. There will be in the future, but right now there isn't. So because of that, we have to have third rail going right the way into GSG, which we kind of have anyway, coming in from the south, from Guard Lake, but we didn't from the north, but we do now. And in fact, next episode, I believe it's going to be, I'm just checking my to-do list. Yes, next episode we're completely rebuilding the station throat of GSG for the local trains, because it is giving me such a headache at the moment, trying to build new lines in and out, to try and ease the congestion going in and out. By the end of this episode we have, I think it's 50 new trains running into GSG, and the existing system just can't cope with that, because it wasn't designed for that many trains to be arriving and leaving at the same time. Although not all 50 arrive and leave at the same time, but the way that the delays work, it ends up sort of like that anyway. So I can't actually see very clearly what I'm doing on the screen right now, because I'm using a small preview window in Sony Studio to see what's going on. So I'm kind of talking off the top of my head, trying to remember what it was I did. What you're basically seeing though is me on the GRF screen, downloading new GRFs, getting rid of the old ones. See here, applying the changes. That's when the little box comes up, tells you this may break your game. It hasn't. That's the main thing to remember in my game. I did have to change all the track type to, I think it was third rail first of all, to ensure that it wouldn't break my save game. And then you can see, I think it's here, I go back and redo it again. I'm checking the track types. I'm seeing if I can actually buy a train, the one that I want, using these depots. I think this was still with new tracks, and the answer was no, you can't. Again, I'm really annoyed about that. Really annoyed, because all the British trains that don't require electrification you can get in any of these depots, and it worked fine, which is why I hadn't noticed it until now. It's only when I tried to do electrification, for some reason one British train was available, the rest weren't. That doesn't make sense to me. I have no idea what that's all about. So yeah, new tracks, as I say, gone. So I'm just having a look at some of the conversation topics that I've got today. The first one really that I want to start with is comments. And I say this a lot in my videos, and I get that not everyone watches all of my videos, so some people might miss this, but I've been playing OpenTTD for a number of years now. I think 8 or 9 years I've actually been playing OpenTTD. But Transport Tycoon, I've been playing since the 90s. I was born in 1993, 1999. I would say I first started playing the game, which is the 90s, believe it or not. I was 6 years old. I remember the game very well. And I used to play it for, I'd say, about 7 or 8 hours a day, which is quite a lot considering, but there you go. So I know this game pretty well, inside and out. You see we start cutting into a time lapse here as well. So I know this game pretty well, inside and out. Some people I know who watch my videos, I've been playing Transport Tycoon since before they were born. That's how long I've been playing the game for. So when it comes to commands, keyboard shortcuts and things like that, there are some that I don't know, and there are some where someone's told me something and I've gone, oh, that's cool, I didn't know that. Like if you click at the bottom of an orders list and press delete, you get rid of the whole orders list. That I didn't know, so I'm really happy that someone told me that. But when I get a comment from someone asking me why I'm doing something and then patronisingly telling me how I should be doing it, I take exception to that, because this person in particular, I know I've been playing this game longer than they've been alive. So what I'm basically saying is I don't mind advice. I like learning new things. So if you have some advice for me, give me that advice. But the tone, please don't be patronising, either to me or to anyone else who comments on my videos, because being patronising is the worst thing that you can be. There's absolutely no place for it on my channel. I try not to be patronising. If I do come across that way at times, I do apologise, because that's not my intent. But if I know something and you've seen me do it in a video, so like this particular example was, if you press and hold control when you're converting tracks or whatever, you can do it diagonally. I know that. I've been doing that for 4 years, maybe even longer. I know how that works. There's a reason I don't do it that way. And the reason I don't do it that way is because sometimes you might just jog the mouse as you let go of the left mouse button, and it does a bit that you don't want it to do. So I decide to do 1 tile wide blocks because I know that way it's going to work. That's why I do it that way. I have my reasons behind my methods, and most of the time I explain them to you as well. Sometimes I don't, because I don't feel they need explanation, but ones like that I do explain. I do sit there and I do say, oh, I've done this and this is why. So if you're watching the video and you see me do something like that, there's a reason why I'm doing it that way. So don't then be going in the comment section saying, why are you doing this? Because you know, because I've already told you. And if you haven't been watching that video, then that's not really my fault, is it? And that might sound harsh, but it's true. I'm not, you know, I make videos and people watch them. I'm not here to hold people's hands whilst they watch them. I'm not here to sort of stop and say, did everybody get that before I move on? That's not my way. That in itself is patronising. So what I'm really saying is, again, if you're watching my video and I do something like when I'm electrifying a track or when I'm converting a track, only use like single tile lines, even if it's on a long diagonal section. In the case of why I did it this particular time, it's because there's loads of other tracks nearby. I imagine it was when I was electrifying the area around GSG in the freight terminal. And if you look at how many different tracks there are running side by side in that area, going under bridges, through tunnels, over bridges, and at one point running right next to the third rail section, that's why I'm doing it that way. So that I can control easier, or more easily, where each bit of electrification goes. You'll see me outside of Guard City, and I did this a couple of episodes ago even, when I was electrifying the rail at third rail. I just went mental, and I clicked at one end, clicked at the other, and just dragged it all the way across. I do that, and I know how to do diagonals as well. As I say, I've been playing this game for a number of years now. So that goes for not just electrification or anything like that, but lots of things. If you're going to ask me a why question, probably best for you to actually read through previous comments, or at least watch previous videos first, because I guarantee you I've already answered the question. And this particular person asks me why quite a lot, and I thought we'd got to a stage where that wasn't going to happen anymore. But no, we seem to be back there again, which is a bit of a shame, because as I say, I don't want to stop people from being able to comment on my videos, but if people continue to misuse the comments or come across as really patronizing or sort of demeaning, degrading, that kind of thing, then I'm not going to disable comments, but I'm going to stop you from commenting on my videos. Simple as that. Also, on Monday's episode, I made a mistake in the title, because what I do when I name my videos is I copy and paste the title from the previous video and then change the number and change the title. It saves having to type it out each and every time. So Monday's episode was episode 164, but because I didn't change the number, it went up as 163. And the reaction to it, you'd think I'd shot someone. Come on guys, I made a mistake. I made a really simple mistake, and I changed it within like 5 minutes of it being pointed out to me. So don't be commenting things like, I want each video to have its own unique number. Of course that's going to happen. A little bit of intelligence goes a long way in life, and it doesn't take a long time for someone to sit there and go, okay, he's obviously made a mistake. Tell me I've made the mistake. I mean, I would like to fix it. It's nothing like that. As I say in a lot of my videos, I'm quite open to admitting my mistakes, and I make a lot of mistakes. Like, you're about to watch me make a big mistake when I build this station, which I really should be talking about, but this thing takes precedence really, because I'd like to nip these things in the bud as soon as possible so that they don't continuously happen, because it does ruin the experience for me. I know the internet is a volatile place. I know that people like to have a go at one another, but when I'm uploading videos of me playing a transport simulation game, you know, puts things into perspective rather, doesn't it? It shouldn't be a hostile environment. but people make it so. And it does take the fun out of it for me sometimes. It's not all the time, but sometimes it makes me question why I still do this, because I can't do anything wrong, it seems, without someone getting really, really sort of angsty about it. And it's so pointless. You know, like, I named a video wrong. So what? Move on. I can't believe that there's people out there that are genuinely hurt by the fact that I accidentally named a video wrong. You know, I forgot to... It's not even like I named it wrong, completely wrong. I forgot to change the number, so 163 went up twice. That anyone knows that it's the 164th episode. In fact, it's not even. It's more than that, because of the 150 A, B, C, D, E, and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I don't want to be continuously complaining, because it's not fun. But at the same time, yeah, a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit of patience would be nice. Not just berating me for naming an episode wrong, or berating me because I didn't electrify the track the same way that you would. So pointless. So pointless. Right. Anyway, conversation topics. Let's go on to that. Let's make this video fun again, shall we? So at the moment, you see I'm building the GSMA South main line to Fort Flunwood. And there's two branches. There's a branch that goes via... I can't remember the name of the town now. There's one that goes east and there's one that goes west. The western one is Dintown. I know that because I've put on my list build Dintown branch of main line. But this station here, Fort Flunwood, it's currently the biggest station on the line. It's one of the biggest stations outside of Guard City. It's also one of the biggest stations if you include Guard City. It's bigger than GSJ, for example. I believe it's also bigger than, well, it's definitely bigger than GST and GSC. It's also bigger than GSP. But it was awful to build. You see, I've built this huge junction to the west, and there's another junction that I build. This is the north, isn't it? Sorry. I built a huge junction to the north, and I try and replicate it in the south. And I was just going to end the time lapse at the end of this big building bit here. But at the last minute, you sort of see me hover, and then I change my mind, and the whole thing gets obliterated and built again. And even now, I'm not 100% happy with it. The problem with this station is, and I've got Reading as one of the conversation topics because of this station. I was reading, again, doing my research, I was reading about the redevelopment of Reading that happened in 2011, I want to say. I think it was 2011 it really started. 2009 to 2015. But I think it was during 2011 that this bit happened. So to the west of the station, two main lines crossed one another, and it was a flat crossing, which was a bottleneck. It was identified as one of the biggest bottlenecks on the entire UK rail network. So they fixed it. And the way they fixed it was they built a flyover. And they put a couple of tracks that went under the flyover to join up with the main Great Western main line. And the flyover itself, let me see. Yeah, a flyover to the west of the station for trains to allow fast trains to cross over the lines to Reading West, replacing the flat junction. So the trains that were going to Reading West went underneath the flyover from the slow lines, which are to the north of the fast lines. So the fast lines crossed over those slow lines and continued off west down towards Bristol. They also built new platforms because there were, before the redevelopment, there were only probably shouldn't be reading this off Wikipedia, but there you go. There's a picture somewhere. Where is it? There's a really useful image I found of, I think it was 4 platforms, maybe 5 through platforms. Yeah, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically 5. I think it was officially 4 through platforms before they rebuilt Reading in 2011. After the rebuild, there were 5 new through platforms built. Sorry, 4 new through platforms built, and there was a new bay platform built as well. So more trains could actually go through the station at any given time. They also improved the existing platforms to allow better capacity as well, which was pretty decent. Built a new station building, a new footbridge, new entrances, things like that. So that's kind of like passenger flow, but it was train flow that I was really interested in. So the whole idea of having a flyover was something that I wanted to incorporate into Fort Flunwood. And the reason being, as I sort of started saying before this, was 2 lines go into Fort Flunwood from the north, and 2 lines leave Fort Flunwood to the south. 2 main lines, 2 4-track main lines. That might be revised after this. I think one of the lines might be reduced to a 2-track coming out of the south. But from the north, 2 fast lines in each direction, 2 slow lines in each direction. And they all have to converge at this station and then all split off again. So originally I wanted it to be that you can go from any of the lines to the north to any of the lines to the south. And it's still the case with the rebuild as well. But I wanted to make it as seamless as possible. In other words, no flat junctions. In the end, I think there are a considerable number of flat junctions, but the way that the platforms are designated, it's not going to be too difficult for trains to get in and out. The final design has more bay platforms included as well. And you can see here on the screen right now, I'm doing this huge terraforming job, trying to build all these lines in, and it just, I mean, it worked. Trains would be able to get in and out perfectly, but it looked awful. And one of the things that really didn't help was I ended up with this huge brownfield site where I've done all of this terraforming, and it just, even looking at it now, I'm getting a headache. I just did not like it. So something that I've started to become more brave in doing in this series, because I mean, Fort Hampton was the first time I really did this, and at the time I was so daunted at the possibility of having to do this. But right now, I don't mind doing this. If something hasn't worked, if it doesn't look right, if it doesn't function right, I am more than happy now to just demolish it and start again. So as you can see, I was trying to build this station like Fort Hampton, with sort of 2 platforms per line and a passing track through the centre. So depending on what platform you were going to, you'd go through the through line and then diverge into the platform, or you'd go into the platform and then go through the through line. But in real life that works because platforms continue through junctions in real life. So at Cambridge, for example, the main platform, which I believe is platform 4, might be platform 1 actually, but the big long platform that runs north to south through Cambridge, it has a junction halfway down, but the junction itself is still part of the platform, so a train can stop in that section and still be considered as, at the platform. The doors are still open, you can still get on and off the train. In this game you can't do that. Signals can't be built on platforms and junctions can't be built on platforms, which I think is something that, I know that there's something about the game, like bridges and tunnels aren't actually treated as bridges and tunnels. They're like graphically, they look like it, when in actual fact it's treated as a flat crossing, but trains can cross one another kind of thing in the code. And I believe stations are kind of like that. The reason you can't build anything on them is because of they're deliberately set as a certain asset. I wish that could change. I wish you could build signals and junctions against platforms. That would make this game, just one little tweak like that would give so many new options with this game, and I would have been able to build Fort Flunwood how I wanted to. But that's not the case, unfortunately. And actually something else which I wish they would put into this game, along with playing Transport Tycoon in my youth, I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon, as you've seen from my Planet Coaster series, and I also used to play Railroad Tycoon. And one of the things I used to really like with Railroad Tycoon was you can run your trains on someone else's tracks, and it doesn't matter at the moment in that case because I'm not playing multiplayer games, but it's something that I've tried to do in the past and not being able to even get a game set up, which is something else that I might need advice with actually, is how to get an online game set up, because I would quite like to do a collaborative series at some point with some people. But I really wish on this game you could run your trains on opponents' tracks. And I know that people are probably sitting there thinking, well, what about trolls? Well, first of all, trolls wouldn't be allowed in my game. Second of all, if they did something like stop their train on the track, which will block all of your trains, my way around that would be you're not allowed to stop your trains. Like, put something in the code where you can't stop your trains on someone else's track. You can only stop the train on your track. So therefore you could probably still sabotage someone by their train runs onto your track and then you stop a train in the way of it. Problem with that then being is you stop your own trains as well. So there you go. But that would be so cool. That would make multiplayer games so much more fun. If you just had someone... be a good way of doing franchising as well. Say someone owns a franchise and they run trains. You can then get an open access, in inverted commas, license. And you could start running your trains exclusively on their tracks. So you wouldn't actually build any tracks of your own. Maybe you have to build your own platforms for the trains to stop at, but apart from that you wouldn't have to build any of your own tracks. I think that would add a real unique element to the game. As I say, that's just an opinion. It's something that I would like to see. At least tried. See how it works out. Right, so the last conversation topic we've got is the Heathrow Western Link, which is quite interesting. This is to do with Reading. So when Reading was redeveloped, some provision was allowed for Crossrail, which when Crossrail was first announced, it was originally meant to terminate at Maidenhead, but a small campaign was launched not long after that, saying take the trains to Reading instead. And actually, Reading is set up as a terminus. Maidenhead can handle terminating trains, but it's more of a through station. Reading is set up as a terminus station. Trains can terminate any of the platforms and reverse. So it made logical sense. Also, the fact that Reading is a big station on the Great Western Main Line made more sense as well. Means that can be treated as more of a hub, and Crossrail actually goes to somewhere more noteworthy. But something else that was announced at a very similar time when Reading was redeveloped was a project called AirTrack. AirTrack was basically a project to get trains to Heathrow, not just from Paddington. So what I mean by that is the plan was that trains from places such as Bristol, Cardiff, I mean these particular stations weren't actually named, but the idea was any trains from the west of England could actually go to Heathrow as well, so that passengers didn't have to change at Hayes and I can't remember the name of the station. Let me just look it up really quickly. That's annoying, because I had it in my head as well. But it's the last station on the Great Western Main Line before Airport Junction, which is where the Hayes and Harlington, that's the one. Before the route diverges off to Heathrow Airport. So there are currently, under Heathrow Terminal 5, there are 4 heavy rail platforms and the tube platform for the Piccadilly line. 2 of those platforms are currently used by Heathrow Connect and Heathrow Express. The other 2 are currently unused. They could be utilised for Crossrail, although I think Crossrail is using the existing platforms. Oh, this is me destroying Fort Flungwood and starting again, by the way. But one of the proposals was to have trains running from the west of England into these 2 extra platforms via a triangular junction, which I think was to be built separate from the original airport junction. So the reason it didn't work out in the end was they wanted to divert the line through Staines, which would have meant that I think it was 15 level crossings would have had increased wait times as more trains were using them, or more trains were planned to use them, and local authorities sort of campaigned against it. So the whole project eventually sort of fell flat. Various other guises of the plan have existed. None of them really have been passed. But I think again that would have been a really interesting project to have happened. Heathrow Airport is the biggest airport in the country. It's one of the biggest airports in Europe, and I think it's still classed as the busiest airport in the world in terms of passenger numbers. Although it does fluctuate from time to time. I think there's like 4 or 5 that sort of swap that honour between them. So, you know, passenger footfall through the airport is immense, and currently there's only 2 lines that serve the airport. There's the Piccadilly line, which doesn't run that frequently to Heathrow. I think it's like 1 train every half an hour or every 20 minutes or something like that goes to Heathrow, and even then some only go as far as Heathrow Terminals 1, 2 and 3. Some go to Terminal 4, loop around and come back to 1, 2 and 3, and some go through 1, 2 and 3 up to 5. Apart from that, the only train that goes directly to Heathrow is Heathrow Connect and Heathrow Express. So there's only 2 rail systems, 3 once Crossrail's finished. But all of them come from London. None of them come from the areas outside London. So again, if you live in Reading at the moment and you want to go to Heathrow, even once Crossrail's finished, you have to go to Hayes and Harlington, change train and then go back into Heathrow, which, you know, if you're carrying heavy bags and things like that, it's not very good. You know, it's not exactly ideal. So I think the idea to actually build a western link to Heathrow was a really good one. It's unfortunate though that the lines that they wanted to utilise were heavy with level crossings. I think it was 25 in total, 15 were heavily affected, which isn't, you know, it's not going to benefit anyone. There's a word that I keep going to use and I forget it at the last second, which is why I keep hesitating and then saying a stupid word like good or well or something like that. It's not very efficient is another way of saying it as well, because if you're driving your car to work one morning and you have to stop at a level crossing for, let's say, 10 minutes because 5 trains go past going to and from Heathrow, I can see why people aren't happy with that. So yeah, I'm not arguing against these people. I think they're perfectly well within their right to campaign against it, and I think actually the campaign against it spoke a lot of sense. You don't want to be waiting at level crossings for ages whilst loads of trains go by. From an economical sense, it probably won't work out either. People not getting to their jobs, deliveries not being made, etc. So I think a new rail link would have been the better option, but then that becomes very, very expensive. And at the moment, you know, people are campaigning against High Speed 2 because of its cost. Some people are campaigning against Crossrail because of its cost. Plus, with Crossrail 2 supposedly on the horizon, a lot of people in the north of England are complaining that London and the surrounding area is getting too much investment, whereas the north of England is getting no investment. I can see why the project ended up not happening. But I think the route itself is still safeguarded. And those 2 platforms aren't going anywhere underneath Terminal 5. They're always going to be there. There is still then the issue of, will the trains continue to the other terminals once they've reached Terminal 5? Again, I'm not 100% sure. What I do know though is Terminal 5 was built with 4 platforms underneath the main building. So, who knows? Who knows what the future holds? I mean, there's lots of things, like even the last minute decision to change Crossrail to terminate at Reading instead of Maidenhead. Something like that could well happen again. Even if they build a cord from the Great Western Main Line from the western side that then links up with the airport line, excuse me, from the eastern side, even that will be better than nothing. I think it was the fact they were trying to save money by using existing rail lines. I think it is the Reading to Waterloo line actually that they wanted to use from Reading, and then have a junction go from that way. So that's the other interesting thing. From what I was reading, I don't know whether I misinterpreted this or not, but it really looked like currently the eastern junction from Airport Junction runs into the north of Terminal 5, I believe, whereas one of the proposals for AirTrack was to have the new line run in from the south. So that to me almost suggests that you could run trains from Paddington to Reading via Heathrow. So you'll actually go through Heathrow Terminal 5 and then continue south, join up with the Reading to Waterloo line, and then continue on to Reading. If that's the case, then you can have a Gatwick Express scenario. So again, I can see why they wanted to use those existing lines. It's just those level crossings were a bit of an inconvenience. I have also read that there are plans to convert some of those level crossings to overbridges, which would most definitely help. It's just whether, again, it's all about cost. Will it end up being viable from an economic sense? Who knows? As I keep saying, only the future can tell. Right, Fort Flunwood is built. You can see it here. Again, it's not perfect. There are still some bits that are a bit wrong. But now we've got the fast lines go through the centre, the slow lines go on the outside, and we have dive unders and tunnels and flyovers and bridges and all that kind of thing to get all the lines in and out of where they need to be. In terms of train storage, there's going to be a train storage to the north east and the train storage to the northwest. The northeast one is slightly bigger at the moment than the northwest one. There will be a couple of sidings on the southeast and southwest side as well. The reason the bigger one is on the northeast is, again, I was reading about Reading, and they actually moved the train maintenance depot whilst they were doing the redevelopment to the northwest side. I think it was from the southeast side, or it was from the southwest to the northeast. Again, I can't remember. Minor details, they're not important. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so one area of Fort Flunwood is obviously going to have larger train storage. Ideally, it's going to be the one that's going to end up with the most trains running through it, which I think actually I have picked out, so that's quite good. In terms of services, at the moment, something else which I did with the new GRFs actually is I changed the parameters, which changes the train colour of the DMUs and the EMUs to like this grey, black, sort of dark blue colour, and it actually looks really, really nice. So I'm quite happy about that. At the time I was a little bit put off by it when it first changed. I was like, what the hell's happened here? But now I've had time to look at it, I think it actually looks really, really cool. So in terms of the services, that's where I was going with this. Currently there is a service that goes up to Flame Junction. So it uses the terminus platforms at GSG. It then runs north up to Flame Junction, comes back down that line, goes down a new chord that I've built that goes into the through platforms of GSG. Obviously goes through GSG via Guard Lake, via GSMA, and then goes down as far as Rinston, I think was the name of that station, where the 4-track main line divides into two. Half of the train's orders then go via Dintown, half of the train's orders then go via the other branch. It's set on a 50-50 conditional order, and then they converge again at Fort Flunwood, but obviously on separate sides of the fast track, with the train either going into the northeast or the northwest storage depending on which side of the station it's gone into. Then goes back to Fort Flunwood and then goes back up towards GSG. Once it reaches GSG, it then goes back up to Flame Junction and then back to GSG, where it terminates in the terminating platforms and then goes back to the depot. It's probably, again, not the most efficient way of doing it. It was the easiest way I could think at the time of actually getting the train to, or a train to run on both sides of the track. As I said, I think there's 50 trains on this order, and even then they're quite spaced out. There's quite a big gap between them. So I'd say, in reality, something I want to do is try and time these trains so that we'll have like a half-hourly service or an hourly service from the terminus stations. I can't guarantee that from every single station along the line, but if you can do it from one, it tends to cascade down to the rest, you know, regardless. So off camera, I'm going to do some calculations and some tweaking. I did work out how many ticks were in an hour. It's basically times 20 times 60 times 60, because it's assuming this runs in the same way as Minecraft, there should be 20 ticks in a second, 60 seconds in a minute, and 60 minutes in an hour. So that will give you the number of ticks that you need between each train. can see here again, there's my single line electrification, because I only wanted to electrify the main line here. I did not want to electrify the freight lines, which is why I'm doing it this way. As I say, my way works with this, and then once I'm outside the city, I go mental with the electrification. Again though, I did all this and then sort of didn't really use it. I don't have any electric trains running on this route still. I still have, in some cases, I still have steam trains running on this route. Although we are starting to, with these main commuter routes, I am using EMUs straight from the get-go. But with some of the more long-distance routes, you will still see me start with steam, then upgrade to diesel, then upgrade to electric over time. I do still like that idea of slow progression, but some routes in England were opened during the 1950s and 60s. Straight away it was electrification. Obviously the underground routes in the deep level tubes, they opened as electrification from the get-go, and some of them opened in the 1800s, so it's not like we're doing unrealistic progress. The trains are available, so we might as well use them. So this is me setting the orders here. You can see we go up via the DC lines to Flame Junction, and then we go back via GSG, as I said. Right, we're getting to the very end of this episode now. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to start talking about next episode's plans, and then we're going to start ending the episode. So, as I said, next episode, originally we were going to do something a little bit different to this. We're actually going to build the airport at Great Winfield, which we built, was it last time out? Yeah. But I actually built the airport itself off camera, so instead we're going to rebuild the GSG station throat. Excuse me, I've got hiccups for some reason. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, we're going to rebuild the GSG station throat to try and make it a little bit more efficient in terms of trains coming in and out, because it is a bit of a pain at the moment watching trains try and cross from one line right the way over to the other side to get into a platform. So we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to completely rebuild it so that's no longer possible. We are then going to start building the Great Western Main Line out of GSP as far as a town called Plintham, by the looks of it. And then, so that's Monday. Wednesday, we're then going to start running trains between GSG and Plintham. Although, considering how sparse Monday's episode is now, we'll probably bump that one up to then instead. But yeah, apart from that, I think that's everything. Yeah. Looks like that's everything. Okay. So I'm going to start wrapping this episode up, because I believe this video is only 43 minutes long, because I can't quite see it at the end of my preview screen. And we're just approaching 43 minutes right about now on my screen. Although, of course, with my outro and everything added, it's going to be a little bit behind for you. So yeah, as I say, guys, bear in mind that little thing I said at the beginning of the episode about comments. Again, I like constructive criticism. It's what makes me improve and get better at the game. But do remember, I have been playing this game for a long time. Just because I'm not doing something on screen that you want me to do doesn't mean I don't know about it. There are sometimes things that I don't know about, but just assume from the start that I don't know about it. Especially if I only do it the once. If I do misname an episode as well, let me know, but don't be, you know, horrible about it. Mistakes happen quite frequently in some cases. Oh no, this video is perhaps longer than I thought it was. Well, there you go. Maybe we should start talking about something else. But yeah, as I say, just be more vigilant in the comments. Be a bit more careful about what you say, because you might not mean to say it in the way that it comes across. But one of the problems with talking through messages online and talking through text is it can be misinterpreted. So always make sure that what you're saying is being said the way you want it to be said. Because you know, if someone takes it the wrong way, it can be very difficult to reverse that. Apart from that, the usual thing, I still need name suggestions. That was the other thing I wanted to flag in this episode. Now I've got a bit of extra time, I'm actually going to do that. Name suggestions, where are they? At the start there was a huge influx of suggestions, and I was really pleased. But over the weeks, especially sort of the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's just completely dried up. I don't know whether, because I said about people not doing tribute names and things like that, whether that's put people off. But some of the suggestions I really liked. Some of the most recent suggestions... Why can't I speak? Some of the most recent suggestions I really liked. Some people doing throwbacks to my Cities in Motion 2 videos. Some people doing throwbacks to my Football Manager videos. I really like that. I really like that. You know me, I like incorporating things from other series into my my videos. But I'd say it's been probably 3 weeks since the last big influx of naming ideas. And I don't believe for 1 second that you're not sitting there with ideas in your heads. So put them down, guys. The link is in the description to the sheet. If anyone has trouble accessing it and that's why that they haven't been able to put a suggestion in, let me know and I'll find a way to get you on there. But it's there for a reason, guys. There are no real limits on what you can and can't say. No stupid things is one thing I did say. So Silly Walks Plaza was a suggestion. I think you can understand why that's not going to happen. Obviously no swearing, no derogatory comments, nothing like that. But any suggestions you have apart from those things, use the name list. You've seen already from other videos that the names get selected, the names get used. Pretty much all of the bus stop names are in use or will be in use very soon. The reason I haven't done a naming spree recently is because I haven't had any to use. There's loads of town names which I want to incorporate, but I need more, so that I can't just name 1 or 2 towns on a route. I need to name them all, so I need more suggestions. So use that suggestions list, it's there for a reason. Apart from that, guys, I am going to end the episode here because we are coming to the end, so thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series, drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. As I say, use the name suggestions list as well. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, then thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.